Well, hey guys, it's Viejo here, and we are into the third week of May in 2024. We've had kind of an overcast day here on the central coast of California. Never did really clear off at all today, which is a little unusual. Hey, this is going to be chapter 9 of the shooting section of this series that we're doing on the 45 ACP 230 grain round nose bullet based on data from the Lee second edition reloading manual. And the idea was, hey, can we take that data that's given by Lee, even though they don't specify what bullet they're talking about, and just arbitrarily use it? And as some of you are figuring out, the answer is kinda. You know, there's some good utility in that information, but you can't just take it all at face value. The introductory bits, there's 2 pieces, and I'll leave a link to the playlist, and you can kind of go back maybe if you're just new to this series and take a look at those 2 pieces to see a little bit more about what's going on. But we finished up the cast bullet section, with the exception of one more that I may add at the end. I think I mentioned last time that I had acquired a new to me old Kramer mold that fits this category, and I did cast up a few of those, so we may try that just to kind of stick it in here, but we'll put that down at the end of the list and see. Today what we're going to look at is the Remington 230 grain FMJ bullets, jacketed bullet. Here's what they look like right here. And even though the data that we're using here comes from a 230 grain cast bullet section, I thought I'd go ahead and throw these couple of plated bullets and a couple of jacketed bullets in there just for comparison's sake, so you guys can see kind of the differences that we would get using, you know, similar loading procedures, similar charge for similar weight bullet, you know, cast versus plated versus jacketed. And just like all of the rest of them, I loaded them all the same way, okay, using the same die set, all Lee dies on a Lee 4-hole classic turret press. Just, you know, everybody got the same charge exactly, all weighed out precisely, just to see what would happen with various bullet designs, which in turn, you know, spells out different cartridge overall length. See what would happen with velocity and standard deviation and shootability and reliability and all that other sort of stuff. So that's what we're up to today, is starting I've got 2 jackets and 2 plateds to show you over the next couple of weeks. So before we go any further, let's come down in here close then and look at the data page and see how this round did. Here's the information then for this round, the Remington 230 FMJ. Those were seated at 0.65, or excuse me, the bullet length was 0.651, seated at 1.270. And last week I had asked you guys if, you know, what you thought was going to happen with jacketed bullets versus the cast bullets with regard to velocity. And a couple guys chimed in and said they thought they were going to be around 100 feet per second slower, and you guys were spot on. Look at this. And I think you're going to see, you know, some similarities to this number down through here. Standard deviation wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great. But the bullet didn't shoot very well at all. And, you know, some of it is the shooter's fault. But this is a pretty anemic load for this particular bullet. And it just didn't perform well. And as we kind of scan up the line here we are at an overall length, and we're going to talk about this here in a related topic here in just a second. 1.270 inches, and if we look up the list here, there's one that was at 1.274, a little bit longer. There's another at 1.27. Okay. So, you know, that RCBS 225 grain bullet loaded at the same length with exactly the same charge a considerable difference in velocity. And related to our data here, last week one of the viewers was asking, so Viejo, is it that the overall length, is that not significant when it comes to reliability? And the question was worded like, is it safe to say that overall length doesn't really affect reliability? And we're going to say that's not really quite correct. Over here I've got some dummy rounds to kind of talk about that a little bit, because the overall length that you seat these bullets at for any particular bullet, and obviously they're all seated differently here, so why did I do that? Why are they all different? And it has to do with how they're going to feed in the handgun, and these were all shot out of the same handgun, the Kimber stainless 2 45 ACP 1911 model. Okay. And again, all the same brass we used, all Winchester brass, Winchester primers. Okay, everything was as close to the same as I could, including the charge. Everybody got the exact same charge. So what's this deal with the overall lengths? Why are they all different? Well, each round has to be more or less custom fit to the chamber of your firearm. Okay, if you seat them incorrectly, they may not even chamber, and you may end up, if you seat them too deep, you can get into all kinds of problems with pressure issues. Okay, and the velocities are going to be affected, all kinds of stuff. Let's come down here a little closer and look at this round. This bullet is a custom bullet from a mold made by the 6-shooter Texan and sent to me. It's about a 200 grain bullet, okay, slick-sided, and of course there's no load data in Lee's book or anywhere else for this particular bullet. It's been sized so you can kind of see where the shank of the bullet ends and the ogive begins right about here. All right. Here is my dummy round for that bullet, and it satisfies our plunk test. It goes in there, and you can see we've got some depth of seating there below flush with the top edge of the barrel there, okay? And it comes right out, and it passes all of these tests. We get it in there, and it spins around really easily, all right? But how did I get to this seating depth? Okay, this one seats at 1.195, a little bit more. Okay, how did I arrive at that? Did I just guess? No. Here's same bullet, sized the same way, and seated into a case and crimped properly. And it is seated to a length that is within SAMI spec for a 45 ACP bullet. But look what happens, okay? It will not seat all the way, and I can't turn it. The ogive of that bullet, okay, is diving into the lands of the barrel down there, okay? And I could pound that in there, and I might not get it back out if I did that. Okay, I'd have to tap it out from the other way. But the reason that it won't seat is that it is too long, okay? And again, if we look closely, you can see the ogive of that barrel begins way up here. So I've got all of that amount of shank extending above the case mouth, and that is just too long. Okay, let's get our dummy round back out here and compare the two side by side. And you can see that in my dummy round, the case mouth comes right to the top of the shank. So how did I get to that? Well, let me show you another one here. Here's another of the same bullet, and this one is seated way too short, okay? And it will pass the plunk test just fine. Look at all of that, man. It's got plenty of clearance there, okay? And it's, rotates freely. It pops right out of there. So why would I not use that as a seating depth? This one is seated below SAMI minimum, and the bottom of that bullet is clear down here, and it has significantly decreased the case volume in here, which is going to lead to excessively high pressure. Okay, so not only that, And I don't know if you can tell, but when I crimp this one, if you look very closely, you can see that the case mouth is just starting to bend over onto the ogive. Okay, almost like the beginning of a roll crimp. And we don't want that. We need that case mouth to be nice and straight so that it will stop up against that ridge that you see down in there. Okay, the case mouth has to stop at that ridge because that's what's going to create our head space for a 45 ACP round. The head space is on the case mouth and then in the back against the bolt, so, or the slide. Okay, so we need to not have that case mouth bent inwards towards the center. Okay, it needs to stay straight, and we don't want that increased or decreased case volume under there because the round was seated too deep. So there's such a thing as seating too long and such a thing as seating too deep. So what I did, I start something like this that I know was going to be too long, okay, and just keep increasing my seating depth until I just get to the point where the round will seat in there properly, spin, passes all of our plunk tests, okay, and that's my seating depth, no deeper than that. So I've got maximum amount of case volume and the bullet is still going to chamber properly. All right, so yeah, the cartridge overall length is a major player in the performance of our cartridge, to the point where if we don't do it correctly, the round may not perform at all or may perform dangerously. So we got to pay attention to that. And with an unknown bullet, that's my process. I continue seating a little deeper, a little deeper, a little deeper at a time until I just get to the point where a round that is properly crimped and seated to the point, just to the point where it will chamber in the firearm that I'm going to use it in. So yeah, the overall length is very important, and regardless of the overall lengths that are given by the Lee manual, you don't know what bullet they use for sure. It's possible in some cases to go track it down and figure out what bullet that they had been using for a specific overall length that they quote in their data section. But for the most part, you're going to have to fit your bullet properly to chamber and perform in your firearm. Okay, just kind of like I was showing you there. It's kind of a trial and error thing at first until you get, a correct overall length established, and then that becomes your dummy round for use in the future. So just because it says a bullet's loaded at 1.260 doesn't mean that the one that you're using should be loaded at 1.260. If you load it too short, you can have pressure issues, could be disastrous if it's way too short. If you load it too long, it may not chamber at all. So yeah, those factors do come into play with overall length versus reliability. Let's go out to the range and take a look. Again, this bullet did not perform very well on the target. Some of it was me, no doubt. Okay, however, just not a real good load for this particular bullet. I've shot that bullet a lot better than I shot it on that day. And you're going to see, by the way, in the video, there was a hiccup. There was one round that didn't want to seat for some reason as the slide took it out of the magazine. It didn't want to feed properly. I don't know what the issue was. I stuck it back in the magazine. It worked fine. So I don't know if the firearm was getting dirty or something. Sometimes the magazine is at fault, although I don't believe that was the case here. I'm not sure what happened. The case rim, everything looked good when I inspected the round, so I just shoved it back in there and finished off the magazine. It worked fine. So we put 14 rounds on paper, 2 magazines of 7 rounds each. Let's go take a look at that.
Remington.
Okay, there you go. Hope you got something out of that and enjoyed the video. For me, it's always fun to listen to somebody else talk for a change because I talk too much, right? All right, let's bring this one to a close. From the Viejo bench for now, that's all she wrote.